Good afternoon, everyone. Today will be the last panel in a series called Nurturing Our Nation, Imperfect Parenting Series. The topic for today is nutrition, mealtime, and meal planning. We want to give a special thanks to the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors, the Department of Child and Family Services, and other industry professionals who have participated in this parenting series throughout the months of September, October, and November. At this time, let's welcome the Honorable Minister Tanae Furbert. Welcome, Minister. Can't hear you, Minister. You're on mute. Sorry.
That's helpful. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to thank everyone that is tuning in today for the last of our panel discussions as it relates to our Nurturing Our Nation Imperfect Parenting series. We are quite excited about the information that we have made available as a resource for parents in our community, and that information can still be accessed on our Instagram page, which is mosds.bda, and all of the panel discussions will be posted on the Instagram page as well as government's Facebook page and government's CITV Facebook page as well. So we encourage you to stay tuned. We're looking forward to a great discussion today as it relates to nutrition and meal planning and what we need to do in that aspect, particularly as a parent. And we're quite excited to have the panelists that we do have with us today. So enjoy, and we look forward, Terry Lynn, to some great resources and information to be shared today.
Thank you, Minister Farbert. So today we're going to welcome our panelists. We have Dr. Aisha Peace Tolbert with Ocean Rock Wellness, Ms. Simone Hollis, Public Health Nutritionist, Allison Outerbridge, and Natalie Bean. Welcome. We are grateful that you are spending time with us today to discuss this important issue. All parents are interested in nutrition, mealtime planning, so very excited to have you with us today. Please introduce yourselves and then we will get into our discussion.
So I'm Dr. Aisha Peace Tolbert. I'm the medical director of Ocean Rock Wellness, Bermuda's favorite wellness team. And I am a mother of three. My kids are 3, 6, and 9. And I am very active in the kitchen preparing. So I'm really excited about this talk and honored. So I'm really grateful to be here with you guys and share what I've learned. My medical training is in pediatrics, internal medicine, and obesity medicine. And lately, I've been doing a lot of what we call root cause medicine. So that is getting to the root cause of the issue. So that is me.
Thank you. Ms. Bean?
I'm Natalie Bean. I float and assist various programs as well as individuals in their homes in nutrition. And I just love this area and helping people to understand that if we eat well, live well, we can stay well.
Thank you. Ms. Hollis?
Good afternoon, everyone. Simone Hollis, public health nutritionist. So I do focus on health promotion as well as population health and developing programs to help and support a healthier Bermuda.
Thank you. And Ms. Otteridge?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Outerbridge. I'm a registered dietitian in clinical nutrition. I'm representing the Bermuda Dietitians Association today in this capacity, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you all. So let's get right into it. What are some foods that children should eat daily? I'm going to start with Dr. Pete Tolbert.
Well, we talk a lot about eating the rainbow. So that means fruits and vegetables every day. I try to make sure that each meal that my kids are eating includes a fruit and vegetable, and that they have that also with their snacks. So they're getting a lot of nutrients. And that's because those foods tend to have a lot of nutrients in them. That's a lot of our vitamins and minerals. So we want to make sure that that's what each kid is hopefully getting every day.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add?
Well, I always think about balance and ensuring that they meet all nutritional needs for a variety of different foods, and encouraging them to eat from the five food groups, which is scientifically based. Not necessarily they would have to have meats, but the protein portion is important, not necessarily dairy, but calcium. For children, good nutrition is so important for good growth and development, and making sure that you do that for parents. It hasn't changed without the five food groups over the years. So, so depending on what diet is chosen, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, whether you still including actual meats in your diet, it's important that you make sure you meet the nutritional needs for what each of those foods provide.
Correct. Just piggybacking off of what Simone
Mhm.
said, building the plate. So there is the My Plate depiction that is widespread in circulation. So just making sure half the plate is fruits and vegetables, a third of the plate is grains, and then the third of the plate is your protein, and then also the calcium sources that Simone had mentioned as well.
And I think also, just to add to this wonderful information these ladies have shared, is with our new ways of eating and having money to spend and buy more extra foods, we need to remember that there's two important foods that we should keep in mind, and that's those that are high in vitamin A and those that are high in vitamin C, which in developing countries are very important. And with all of our extra foods that are eating, sometimes we miss out on those. So foods, as Dr. Talbot mentioned, colorful foods, deep yellow orange for vitamin A, beta carotene, and vitamin C rich foods, which are also those colorful foods. So foods rich in vitamin A and vitamin C are very important for children on a daily basis.
Thank you. Okay, so eating the rainbow. Are there any foods that we should avoid giving to our children? And I will start with Miss Hollis.
I wouldn't say that there are specific foods. I mean, definitely depending on age, any medical conditions or allergies. I wouldn't say specific foods other than building on a healthy diet to avoid those foods that are going to be high in fats, saturated fats, high in sugars, highly processed foods that we tend to use, but choosing more whole foods instead that can actually meet those nutrients that we talked about. More society based on the life that we're living, the lifestyle that we're living in Bermuda. Some of our statistics that we found, the reasons why some Bermudians aren't eating more fruits and vegetables, the concern was cost. And so there's a lot of reasons why people choose the foods that they choose. And then we just need to kind of make the healthy choice the easier choice for a lot of our Bermudians to choose from. So I don't know, someone else might have another answer.
I think, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Natalie.
Okay. I think parents just need to be aware of World Health Organization just a few years ago put out a message to the world that, as Simone mentioned, processed foods, especially sausages, bacon, hot dogs, we need to be aware of. There's a definite link to increased risk for cancer. So those are easy foods to buy, but we definitely need to buy better alternatives or make parents aware to find better alternatives for those.
In my practice, because I generally see people who are coming to me with issues, we do see food products now containing certain things that aren't healthy. And I think we like to create a bit of awareness, such as food colorants, dyes, MSG, these types of ingredients now that are mixed in with food, even natural flavors and colorants, have a very toxic background and can be very toxic to children. Now, some there's also been more awareness about, diets such as gluten-free and dairy-free and things like that, and parents wondering, okay, what to do, or if that even would benefit their child. And I would say if your child is starting to struggle with issues like maybe asthma, allergies, eczema, those sorts of things, or they're having issues with attention or mood, then I would focus on, it might not be just that you're adding great foods in that are balanced and whole, but you may have to be conscious about eliminating foods that are toxic. And these are foods that are more processed. And when we say processed, these foods are usually coming in a package, so that you guys know that they're coming in a package. They're usually in the middle of the aisle, so they are not along the edge of the grocery store, and they will probably be, could survive in your cabinet for like weeks and even months. So they have very long shelf lives. They're not something that you have to put in your fridge.
I was actually going to mention that Dr. Pete stole it about the perimeter of the grocery store as well.
You go
So,
for it, Allison.
pardon?
I said, you go for it.
Oh no, I was saying
About
like it was
competition.
perfect because it's it just goes to show that across the board, similar recommendations um, are in place. So with regards to my take on it, just piggybacking off of what everyone had said, being conscious of the different preservatives and all those types of things, but also making sure that um, they're the children are eating things that are more so going to improve their food experience as well. So if we're talking about the educational component, teaching them why certain things, fruits, vegetables, all those things are going to be, the better food options. But you're not only just giving it to them, but also, have them being in good understanding as to why this is good for your body, why we should stay away from certain things, just so that they can kind of build a discernment for themselves, and also, put things in place for themselves, like parents are in charge of choosing what time should they eat, when should they eat, but the children's going to be in charge of how much they eat and those types of things. So just making sure that those types of tools are already in place in conjunction with the recommendations as to how should a balanced plate look like as well.
Thank you. So those were some helpful tips about what foods we should be avoiding, and then also talking to our children about what they're eating and why. Are there, when it comes to later health, are there any foods, or if there are any dietary patterns that we have in childhood, would that impact our later health outcomes? And who didn't start? I'll start with Allison on this one.
So yes, so from my what I found over time is that a lot of the habits that we develop when we're in adolescent ages and developmental ages project into our adulthood experience with food. So it's just a matter of trying to make sure that we keep our natural cues for hunger, our natural cues for fullness intact. So when we do move into adulthood, we do have the necessary tools to be able to create a balanced diet for ourselves. So with children, they're at an impressionable age, and they usually mimic what their parents do, or they usually they're very curious about what certain things are going on and why. So involving the children in food processes like shopping, food preparation, and those types of things, giving them access to different ways to prepare certain things, foods that they enjoy eating, maybe they would enjoy preparing it as well. So it is about just creating an environment that would be conducive to not only their development as an adolescent, but also the development with their food experience.
Thank you.
I think trans fats are a food found in refined baked goods and deep fried French fries. Some of these foods that children can develop a habit for as Allison mentioned, later on in life, uh, it develops a desire for those foods. So it's good to definitely minimize those types of foods earlier in life, and you can make healthier choices for the same foods. Hmm.
Thank you. Dr. Tobin?
Also,
Okay, sorry.
I think Dr. Peets could mention more about this, but even for children as young as 3 now, they're finding um, plaques in the arteries. So that would affect children later in life. And if they continue with habits that increase plaque in the arteries, it's going to definitely be a problem later in life.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing kids now with issues like high blood pressure and even type 2 diabetes that we
Mm.
see a lot earlier. A lot of this is related to it is a lot of other factors than what they're eating. So I will say that, but what they're eating is a big component of it. And remember that why we're also seeing some advancements in kids is that we're seeing overall increases in our toxicity levels, in the world. So the chemicals that we're getting exposed to are not the same chemicals that or are a lot more chemicals than what our grandparents got exposed to. And so when they look at cord blood, which is the blood that is transferred between the mom and the baby, they find that it's 120 chemicals just in that. So our kids are now getting a big and heavier load of toxins just at the beginning. And so we have to be really conscious that certain foods that might have been fine for even our grandparents are no longer as great. And they also aren't even the same foods because they have been industrialized and chemicalized. And we have ingredients like high fructose corn syrup that now gets decided as corn syrup or different other words. So it really is important for parents to really check those ingredients when they're look at the back, get really used to when they're buying stuff for their kids, just look at the back, and if they can read it and understand it, then it's probably good. If their 6-year-old cannot read and understand it, so it's not really got really basic ingredients, that's a really good sign that that's probably not a great product or a great food for your child to eat. Yeah,
120 chemicals, that's a lot.
it is. It's a lot, and that's
Wow.
what we're seeing.
Wow. So we really have to do an intentional job of making sure that the food we eat sets us up for healthier habits later on. Wow, that's a
Absolutely.
lot. Ooh.
And
So,
and that's going to be I'm sorry, that's going to be
mm,
definitely specific and starting at the earliest of the age. When food's being introduced, have them have good experience with the healthy food choices, like Allison had mentioned, with regards to the parents are responsible for deciding what foods the children would eat. They just need to decide of what's being provided of what they would eat. Avoiding doing all this short order cooking and things just to feel like they're eating. You have to be deliberate of choosing those foods that are going to be more healthy and nourishing for them so that they can have healthy eating patterns and behaviors. So all those things of the trans fats foods, the high saturated foods, the foods that she mentioned with toxins, you have to be definitely deliberate in making sure that you allow for healthy eating practices and eating behaviors. And you also have to be that same role model. You want to offer the same foods, it has to be in their entire environment. And so, like Dr. Tolbert had mentioned, there are a lot of other components, definitely with developing heart disease and diabetes, the lack of activity, everything that's totally different for this generation. It needs to be thought out. So we even try to encourage the population to begin gardening if they say that they don't have the opportunity.
Mm.
Let the children get involved in doing those things. See where food actually comes from, because actually growing it is totally different than purchasing it in the grocery store. And once they see that, once you get them involved, like Allison had mentioned with one of our questions before, they're more likely to be involved and see that this is what's the norm, as opposed to some of those other unhealthy foods that do contribute, for overweight children being overweight adults, that will provide a lot of health issues in the long run.
It's great, great tips. Can we switch to some meal planning? What would you recommend? And I'm going to ask three age ranges for sample meals for a preschooler age, school age, and teens. And we could do a breakfast or lunch. I think lunch is probably planning their school lunch. So for preschool age, 3 to 5, what's a recommended sample meal? And who hasn't started yet? I think it was Natalie. Natalie, have you started yet? I'm trying to
No,
keep a record.
no. Okay, 3 to 5. Well, really, again, having the rainbow, making it a colorful meal. Just something to keep in mind is at that age group, less than 5, it's easy to choke on some
Mhm.
foods and some of the raw fruits and vegetables. So chopping them up into smaller pieces, or even sending some purees. Well, they're a little bit past purees, but for example, even an apple, you would want to peel it and cut it into a thin slice. I just reviewed an article by an ENT, a throat specialist, a pediatric throat specialist, and she mentioned how many children she has come in who, because of the hard pieces, like with vegetables, and the children aren't able to chew, and it just gets stuck in the windpipe. So that's just to keep in mind. Even with grapes, a
Yes.
soft food, they can be peeled if necessary, but definitely cut in half. So any round foods that can lodge in the throat, parents just need to be aware to cut those up. So a sample meal, definitely include on that half portion of plate some type of fruits or vegetables, soft foods that the children can chew, some sort of protein. It may even be a spread, like a bean spread, a hummus, or whatever the child is used to having at home, but definitely cut in pieces that the child can chew. And then we have protein, we have fruits or vegetables, and some sort of grain or starchy vegetable. So that might be even some potato wedges that have been baked. That can be um, even children are getting into new ways of eating, like quinoa salad these days, that they didn't even know about years ago. But because their parents are eating those foods, they now eat those foods. So some sort of grain or starchy vegetable. Even you can even send a little baked sweet potato. Yeah, so that's a
Thank
meal.
you. Does anyone else want to add before I move to the school age? Okay, so for ages 5 to 12, Dr. Pete Talbot, I'm coming to you.
All right. That's fine. I have two kids in that range, and every day they have to eat, so that is fine. That's so what I tend to do is I use a lot of hot lunches and leftovers, so that really works well with our family. So generally, it will be pretty much the same thing I'll give to dinner. I prefer and this is different. So I'll give you an option. I prefer not to do a lot of grains in my family, and that's just because I will tell you that some of the grains, because of pesticides and insecticides, are loaded and can be too much. And so I find that my kids are very sensitive to those. So I am kind of cautious. And what's great is that you have little things like wraps that are a lot more like almond based and cassava flour based and coconut flour based, and so they don't have those toxicity levels as some of the grains. So they will generally get a hot lunch in a thermos. So a nice thermos is going to keep their lunch warm. I usually include something like rice or potato, They love like a curry potato. I usually put a vegetable in there, something like peas, really easy for them, but they also like broccoli. I like the idea of that. Broccoli is also a great cruciferous vegetable that helps our body to clear toxins. So I find that mixing that all in with that, and then I usually will have cut up pieces of chicken. They love that. There are snack box, which is like a little bento box built, is usually something that they sometimes help me with. And so I encourage, 5 is a little bit young, but my 6-year-old and 9-year-old love food, and they're really, they take their lunches seriously. So they are really happy to help build up their lunch. They usually will include 2 fruits in their section. So usually it's something that they love, something easy for them. We usually peel their tangerines, they'll have their strawberries, they'll have their grapes and apples. Now, what I find is that kids are not crazy about when apples start to go discolored. And so they do not like that. So what we do is we'll put a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of maple syrup on top, so it keeps the apple looking in great. Because a lot of times we are prepping their lunch the night before, actually all the time. That's the magic of having 3. You need to do some of this stuff at night. And then they'll have their dry snacks. Their dry snacks can be anything from rice crackers to cookie. Sometimes they have little Cheerio bites that they like, but there's usually some sort of more cleaner, conscious snack that I'm including in, and that I think is for the lunch. And of course, they have to wash it down with something, and it's usually water. And I think most of the schools are big on water being the biggest thing to sand. I don't know if schools are allowing juice boxes anymore, but I know with my kids, they haven't been really. That's more discouraged. So it's usually water.
Thank you. Lots of tips in there. Does anyone else want to respond to that, or should we move to the teens?
I
I
I
would.
love.
Oh,
Oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead. You could go first.
No, I was just saying I love that Dr. Pete's Tolbert mentioned that she got them actually involved, and so that they're actually engaged, they're actually learning while they're preparing the lunch. It's just not, let's just put a lunch together and just have meal and let it be done. They're actually learning healthy eating habits. It's really a positive environment. They're enjoying it, and so it's more likely to stay with them as an actual habit. So
And
I
more
I
likely
love
for them
that.
to eat it. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I think what frustrates parents is when they really try to do something healthy and the kids bring it home, and you're like, and it's
Yep.
hard to recycle that, right? I hate throwing away food, but then it's not as great after it's been out all day. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of. I mean, these are all great tips. I don't have any children, so it's more so just it definitely comes with experience, right? Doing what's best for not only your children, but also the predicament of or the position of the parent trying to do the best for their child, right? Also, just wanted to tie in budget, working within the budget restraints. Sometimes it isn't feasible to give everything or give or buy things that a little bit more specialized. So definitely wanted to make sure that all food groups are covered but within the budget, just to make sure that there is no stress surrounding trying to provide healthy meals for your children. There are a lot of resources out there that teaching grocery shopping on a budget, choosing different foods, balancing meals within your budget, and those types of things. So it is about getting creative, especially when you do have those restraints financially, and then maximizing the resources as much as possible.
Thank you. So let's talk about our teenage group, 13 to 18. I'm going to start with Allison.
So 13 to 18 is usually when you have the growth spurts, you have all of the developmental puberty starts to hit, hormonal changes and those types of things. So it pretty much mimics what the adult plate would look like. Usually this is the time where they become a lot of the adolescents become more active, or they start to get, more interested in their social lives and those types of things. So parents are usually in that this age 18 take a step back, and is usually sometimes the children or the adolescents kind of move into a more prominent role in their food preparations in some cases. So it is just about continuing to provide the balance. I know that in the community I work with a lot of the athletes, and I encourage them to go grocery shopping with their parents, start to learn how to prepare, especially if you're preparing to go off to school and those types of things, and building your balanced plates as you see fit. It's the same recommendations all throughout, from infant all the way up, just trying to provide the proper nutrients for them to thrive, and also, be fueled. So it more so is just repetitive, just kind of
Yes.
the same thing Dr. Pete told, but saying, making sure that, a lot of allergies also are present in this age. So making sure that you're able to maximize their nutrition if they have food restrictions, getting access to the resources, being educated, and then involving your child as well, so that their food experience remains intact and it's not just a matter of, oh, everything's going all around me. So it's just an interactive experience, for both the parent as well as the child, and in moving forward in that regard.
Thank you. You mentioned growth spurts, and this is for anyone on the panel. Are there suggestions for nutrient dense foods during those times? I mean, I remember when we were teenagers, and, that was the time where my mom was like, I'm going to put a lock on this fridge. You all are eating too much. Because we have budget restrictions, people have to manage their finances, and then it's a time where children are eating more. Is there recommendations, tips for, foods that would kind of give you the most bang for your buck?
Looks like Natalie wants to go.
Can't hear you, Natalie. No? Can't, no. You might have to go off and come back on.
Um, I will say that teenagers are really in a tricky period because they are growing so much, just like Allison said, but they're also at this weird social emotional state where parents are really wanting to like encourage the independence and say, hey, you can do a lot of this your own. And so what I find is that it could be a disaster when it comes to teenagers getting the right nutrition. And then you see all sorts of issues start to perk up because their body's not really getting the nutrient support that they have. And some of that I need to keep on going to the fridge and things like that. Some of that also is not getting the right foods that help to shut off their hunger messages. And that's where protein definitely comes in. It's just to tell the body, okay, well, I've had enough. But also, if you're getting a lot of foods that aren't got a lot of nutrients in it, your body's gonna constantly feel hungry. So I really find that teenagers actually need to be supported a bit more. Like everybody, all parents are really invested in a 2-year-old's meal. They're gonna make sure they have everything, but I can talk to a teenager and they will go through and I ask them what they have for lunch. And it will be like, oh, I had a bag of chips and I had this and that. And they really start to just like go into like a bit of survival mode. They know that they're on their own, but those building blocks haven't really, really quite established. And then their brain is not developed. In a lot of ways, they want to be independent, but it's really not all clicking and not right. And some are not really able to organize themselves as good. So really cautious. I don't want to caution, but I want to say, parents still support your teenagers. I do think that you can encourage the independence, but really help them to um, build a healthy meal that's still, so maybe they might like salads. They might still be into sandwiches, who knows? But make sure that they are having something that is very balanced. And then, we'll still kind of encourage them to like grab an orange, grab an apple. And then if they want to do like still a bag of chips or something like that, they're still got some nutrient dense, things in there that's going to help them. But just filling in while Natalie was.
Oh,
Go ahead, Natalie.
yeah, I was
Natalie, are
just
you
going to
okay?
say, especially with young men, two boys who just moved past the teen years, but during the teen years, those extra calories, some quick and easy things we found, in our day, grain bowls. We still do eat a lot of grains, and my children have grown well on whole grains, brown rice, oatmeal. Now there's barley, there's quinoa, barley, things like that. But a grain bowl is just layering up. If you have it already cooked up, for example, a grain bowl using brown rice, you have it already cooked up. You layer it. Start with brown rice. The next layer can be some sort of dark leafy greens, such as spinach or bok choy, or collard greens or kale cooked. The next layer might be roasted vegetables, which are easy to just cut up, throw in the oven for 20 minutes, put those as a layer. Then the next layer, their favorite type of protein food. It could be tofu, it could be, whatever they like. That's just something that we happen to use. And then a nice sauce. And then you might even sprinkle, in the teenage years, sprinkle some sort of nuts or seeds, which I have found is a great way to boost calories in that group. So that's a grain bowl, which is quick and easy. Burritos are nice. Thinking of ethnic foods are nice. Burritos, tacos, those are nice. We like taco salad, again, layering up. Crunchy blue chips that are lower in sodium, an option for that. And then some sort of 3-bean chili. And then lots of vegetables, all of their favorites. I let them choose because I've noticed at the teen years, they want to be in control. They don't want you to tell them what they want. So let them choose, and then just top it up with your favorite salsa or some sort of cheese. We like a plant-based cheese or even a cashew vegetable cheese that we make. So whatever you use in your own household, yeah, it makes a great meal. And I just want to also add, in the younger years, for adding those extra calories, we found that, again, in the nuts and seeds category, and you can use the nut butters, or the seeds would have to be chopped very finely, for children who have problems with chewing. Also, again, the bean spreads, those were helpful for us for adding calories. And if a child or even a teen is getting enough calories, you have to worry less, for example, about protein. So just making sure they get enough calories, and nuts and seeds are a good place. And also even avocado, natural fats are a good place to get those extra calories that teens and even growing young children need.
Thank you. Now, earlier we mentioned growth spurts. Can we just talk to our community about growth spurts? Like, what are they? What is happening in the body for whether it's an infant or a teenager? Like, it's a real thing. I'm going to pass it to Dr. Pete Stolman.
Oh, good. I mean, so what we're seeing in growth spurts is when there's a real active period where the child is growing. In the senses that they're getting bigger. I mean, we know that because we'll start off at 0 to 3 month close, and next minute they're in 6 to 9 months close. But what we find is that real that growth is really can be around a certain period of time. And when they're infants, we can see it within like a few days. Usually it's around like a milestone month. So 1 month, 2 months, 4 months. I tell parents usually around that's because usually that's when we're doing wild child checks. That's the time where they might notice, oh, if they're a breastfeeding baby, they're going to be up more, wanting to drink more. They also might have periods where they're actually more somnolent because the there is a part where the kids are taking in all the calories that they need during the day, and a lot of that growth, even in their brain and repair and growing and building in more muscle and bone, that all happens when they're sleeping. And so you get these lots of eating periods with lots of sleeping. And parents are really good, I have to say, is starting to recognize that. So new parents, I might have to clue them in really in the beginning, but by the time a kid is 3 or 4 years old and they start to see lots of eating, always hungry, that sort of thing, and you're like, I swear you had enough. You shouldn't be keep us that you're hungry. That's and then that's a growth spurt, and that's really times to support a kid. Um I'm hesitant right now because I have my 3-year-old about to turn 4, and I'm just like, oh, you're always hungry, you're always eating, and I just want to be like, let's lock off the fridge, but at the same time, I know that she's likely going to do a growth spurt. So just be supportive. I am conscious, though. I do really want my kids to understand their cues and recognize when they are hungry. So I noticed that my kids can start to be a little bit very snacky towards nighttime, and they've had quite a bit. And I say, are you hungry, or are you starting to get tired? Because tiredness and hunger can feel the brain gets a bit confused. And so even we see that in our sleep deprived adults, they tend to take in more calories, and feel more snackish. So that's what I want to say about birth parts. I don't want to go off
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. So being supportive and also providing some education about what's happening to you in that time.
Especially as they get older. Yeah.
Yes.
And I just want to mention that poor nutrition can actually affect the growth and development of the children. And so that's something that we see in some of the younger infants, especially when they haven't been taught to eat or to try different textures. Believe it or not, eating is actually a learned experience. And some parents leave the bottle or something like that, and then they have too much milk, unless they're typically still following on formula, but when they offer the milk and then they get too much milk and too much juice and all of those different types of things will limit the iron, which will actually affect the growth. And so every time you go into the doctor, they're looking at that growth chart to see where they are and how they align with some of the other children with regards to the growth, as long as the growth is steady along the chart. But sometimes it brings about alarm bells when they aren't growing or they've fallen off where they were on that curve along. So it really is important. Good nutrition is important during these stages, the very early stage when there's rapid growth for babies, and then the school age children and adolescents when they're going through those particular changes of those growth spurts, making sure that they eat well. So we get along with the teenage boys, but they do need those extra calories. They do need to, it's just the types of foods that we want to choose. And if we started early with healthy eating patterns and behaviors, and for them identifying their satiety cues and those different types of things, then they can move forward with having, making healthful choices or including exercise as part of it. So, like Dr. Pete's Tolbert had mentioned earlier, it encompasses the whole lifestyle habits, and hopefully parents also encouraging that, because your children do actually mirror what you do.
One thing I want to mention, because Simone, you know, said something that made me think about this, and especially like the early on and hanging on to the bottle too long, that is something that we do see as an issue. So what I'm what we're a little bit referring to, and even Natalie mentioned a couple of times about being concerned about children choking and having issues with chewing. The reason why that is more of a highlight now than even ever before is that we have kids that are more bottle fed in our society and our culture than they ever were before. When you bottle feed, it's very easy to get that milk out. So you don't actually work your muscles in your mouth as much as you do when you're breastfeeding. So what happens is that we're noticing that the muscles of chewing, which is the muscles of mastication, are underdeveloped in kids. And so when they are starting to get ready to chew and they have poor tongue control, they're not got really good tongue, and so they have issues with chewing, and this is where other people like speech therapy can come in to help. But really, there was a question about what foods are good for oral health, and the dentists actually who do biological dentistry actually really encourage to get your child using solids as as early as possible. And it's something called baby-led weaning, that they're even encouraging them to actually start to be introduced to some solids and softs. And you can do a mixture of purees and solids then, but they really try to get encouraged to do these solids. You want your child to be chewing and developing their muscles. And truthfully, that's also something that's going to bode well for them in adulthood, so they don't have issues like sleep apnea because they got poor muscles, and they're not able to hold their airway open when they're sleeping because everything's just so floppy. So those muscles are really important. Chewing is actually really important. So, encouraging chewing and seeing chewing and not being overly dependent on bottles and purees is really good. You need to chew and use your teeth, and they need to learn how to do that.
And can I
Piggybacking
mention?
on, oh no,
Okay.
go ahead. No, piggybacking also, just I know that we also mentioned the hunger and fullness cues, those types of things. I know Dr. Pete Stolbert mentioned like breastfeeding versus formula feeding and those types of things. And those the child is able, in a breastfed infant is usually able to determine and develop those hunger and fullness cues at that young stage, because they stop drinking or they continue to drink. They are in control of the amount of breast milk that they get if they're breastfed, whereas usually if they're bottle fed, the parent is in control of those hunger and fullness cues. So definitely wanting to make sure that, as at a young age, the child is able to identify, just like Dr. Pete Stober was saying she does with her children, identifying when they're full, identifying when they're hungry, because that does translate into to adulthood, when you have a lot of disordered eating patterns that are just masked as I don't eat, or I don't eat, I only eat once a day, or I'm not hungry, just because we're not really in tune with the body's cues. And even throughout adolescence, even Dr. Pete Stolbert mentioning that some adolescents just have chips for the day or something like that. They're at risk for nutrient deficiencies because they're not getting those balanced meals. So the growth spurts sometimes look a bit different. And sometimes in females, they become anemic, or they have joint issues because of calcium and vitamin D deficiencies and those types of things. Different it's all it's all separate, but it's all encompassing at the same time. So just trying to provide that support all throughout their developmental years, so that it does translate into a full package in adulthood.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
just what Allison mentioned with those deficiencies, even during um, teen years, especially for females. We talk a lot about fat, so some teens overly restrict fat and can actually have too low of a percent body fat and end up with problems with their menstrual period, which I have noticed and also read about. So it's important that we don't overly restrict fat, in our day and age where everyone's talking about, not too much fat, but fat is important at all stages of life. And even it's a food group. So healthy fats and have some fat is important.
Really great tips. Wow, I've learned a lot today. What can a parent do to address picky eating, and when should a parent address picky eating? And I will start with Miss Bean.
Yes, picky eating. So even what I have observed firsthand is, number one, talk less about what a child is eating in front of the child. Make less of an issue of it, because sometimes we can create an issue by discussing too much what the child ate and didn't eat. And they say it takes 20 or more exposures to food for a child to accept it. So just take time, observe the child. If there's something they're not eating, if it continues for long term, find out why. I would just have a direct conversation with the child. You used to eat that. Why aren't you eating that now? For example, a child that was with me, before they ate raisins, and then all of a sudden they would not eat raisins. They refused them. And I found out that it was because a cousin of theirs did they observed they didn't eat raisins. So some of the picky eating can come from peers, what peers do and don't do, especially for young children if they're in nursery school. Sometimes it's just they don't like the texture or taste or flavor of the food. So it's okay if it's not affecting their overall nutrition, but if it's for a long period of time and it's actually a food group that's affecting their intake, and you're noticing changes like weight, um, their weight isn't increasing like it should or balance, then that's the time to get some help, and find out what is the problem. Yeah. Oh, and I'll just say, before if someone else has something to say, but I will also say, I think everyone kind of touched on this earlier, including them in meal preparation is really helpful. Letting them participate in planning the meals. What vegetables do you want to have on our menu this week? When shopping, you can choose which vegetables we have. Which ones do you know want? So letting them participate in that, and also letting them help to prepare, even including them if they're not old enough to help prepare the food, but letting them be in the kitchen in a safe place, watching you, so that have a part in preparing the meal helps.
I would add to that and say encouraging your child to talk about their food experience as well, helping them to communicate their preferences and their needs. Reintroduction of food over time. Different, trying to also determine what foods that they like, things that they don't like, would also help in a grand scheme as well, to make sure that they are getting a variety of foods, involving them in grocery shopping, like Natalie said. Even if they want to do their own grocery list, I found that helps with the clients that I've worked with, to say, oh mom, I want this, helping them, just to be a little bit more interactive with the space. And then if it is something like a child refusing, just encouraging them to at least take a little bite, see what it tastes like, as opposed to just completely, I don't like raisins because my cousin doesn't like raisins, but I've never tried them. So, hey, just take a little bite, just encouragement. And then also, what I found is substituting punishment with encouragement. So I know a lot of times they're like, oh, you're not getting up from the table until your plate is clear. Trying to find alternatives. I know that is, a ill time.
You're taking me back. You're taking me back.
Of doing certain things, but just trying to find different approaches as well to provide a good food experience at meal times.
Thank you.
And sometimes, I'm sorry, you can go ahead, Doctor.
No, I was waiting for you because you said it a bunch of times. So I was like, I bet you Samara's just going to reiterate. But you sure that the parents?
Go ahead.
The parenting. But go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I lost my train of thought now, I think.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I was trying to say, I think I was gonna say, with regards to, and Natalie had mentioned just finding the reasons and the concerns. I just wanted to say that people tend to forget that, like I said before, that eating is learned behavior. You learn how, you actually have to learn how to eat. If not, they will continue to use the bottle. And sometimes you would find out that picky eaters are just created because you haven't incorporated and included more foods at an earlier time for them to taste, to explore. It's all about exploring in that first year, so that by the end of the year, they're able to actually taste and be able to eat everything that the family members are eating. There's some common things that they would have that parents tend to overreact and think, oh, my child's a picky eater, and then they're willing to fix different foods and give them what they feel they will eat, because we want to fulfill our role in our day to day and just give them what they think, what they would eat, as opposed to encourage them. If they miss a meal, they'll be fine. They'll eat the next day. It's not something to be stressed about. And having that positive relationship with food is one of those things. And so sometimes they will use food to get attention. So when they're 2 years old, they use that because that's the way how they have some type of control, without them even knowing that, because it's part of that developmental stage of where they actually have this sense of identity, and they use that. Or they start to focus on eating certain foods or refusing certain foods. You don't have to make a big fuss about it. They might demonstrate selective eating habits. You might think, you find out that, oh, they like peanut butter and jelly or whatever it is you're offering them, and you keep giving them that same food all the time, that doesn't necessarily have to be that issue. Just keep offering the healthy foods, because that would be your responsibility. Keep offering the foods, give them a time when they can have to eat those foods, make sure that you're having regular set meal times, sitting, even sitting with them, because they see you eating those foods.
Mm.
Try not to let them actually pick out of your foods that you have. Sometimes you let them have a snack and then you feel, oh, they're not really hungry. Well, they've been drinking from the bottle. They've been having snacky foods, and then when you try to sit them down, they're not hungry. So you want to have to
Mm.
make sure that you provide a safe time that they can eat, and when that eating time, so that helps as well. So it's really just a consistent balance for parents to be consistent. And if they don't want to eat what's available at the time, it's fine if they don't eat it at that time. You will not have to force feed a hungry child.
Mhm.
And when should a parent seek professional help when it comes to picky eating or refusing to eat?
I think one
Mm,
of those things is definitely when they're falling off the growth chart, and they're not meeting their goals in growth, any delays in development. It could be a lot of things. It could be malnutrition going on. It could be something else medical that's going on, and why these children may be picky that you may not notice.
mhm,
Something going on with their gut, their bowels, anything that could possibly delay them from wanting to eat. Or if they're really constipated and they're backed up, then you might find that they may not want to eat. And that's why you have to really look at those types of cues. So, like Natalie had mentioned, find out what is the reason, if there is one. But definitely when you see changes in weight, or they're not growing how they should be. And normally, if you're doing your checks on a regular, the doctor will catch that. But you would also notice when things are changing as well when you're in tune.
sometimes the weight can go the opposite way. I have seen
Yes, yes.
that. So it's like they're gaining weight because they're more preferencing less nutrient dense foods.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's a real, but yeah, there's a good cues. I will say, I want to say one parenting tip that has worked for us, that for picky eating, that I didn't quite hear, was using age appropriate clues in as how great the food is. For instance, my 2 year old to 3 year old stop eating vegetables. And that's a lot. That happens a lot. I tell parents that, that does happen a lot, and you just have to kind of encourage it. But how a 2 year old or 3 year old is going to get really excited about eating vegetables and recognize it's going to do something healthy. Oh, is this vegetable or this thing helps to make
Mm.
your hair grow? Of course it does, right? She wants to have her long hair like Rapunzel. Yeah. So she, and that's not a lie, because we need good nutrients to make our hair grow, and our nails strong. Oh, you want to ride a bike and be strong like your sister? Well, you got to eat your vegetables. You want to be strong like Superman and have good muscles, then you have to. And so you have to tie in that the nutrients and the foods that they're eating actually help them to be stronger
Mhm.
in a way that they know, right? So if there's a superhero, if there's somebody that they're looking up to, you have to encourage them that there's certain foods that are going to help them to get there. And you can't say, hey, this is great to eat because it's going to be good vitamin C in it, so you have to say, oh, this is what you're going to get because you get this food. So that's one parenting tip that I found has really been helpful. So
And in the US right now, where they have cafeterias, we don't
Mhm.
have cafeterias here, but they just, as you mentioned, they're marketing foods. So the cafeteria has a healthy choice on the menu. So they're actually taking time to put up posters about that food to show how, okay, animals love this particular food, or, as you mentioned, your favorite character on TV loves this type of food. So they actually have a marketing strategy to promote healthy foods. Whereas in grocery stores we're seeing a marketing strategy for unhealthy foods. But even as parents, you have to come up with a good marketing strategy for healthy foods.
yeah, and boys love dinosaurs, and learning that the Brachiosaurus was an herbivore, like they tie into that stuff very early. So you got to use that stuff.
Okay, so tonight when I go home, I'm gonna sell and market that unicorns must eat vegetables to fly. That's what I'm gonna use.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, as we're winding down, one question that I really wanted us to address was, how should we respond to children who are being influenced by their friends, especially like these very young age who are talking about diets and will only eat certain foods based on what their classmates are eating?
So kids get really impressionable at the age of 6 and 7. So I find that with my kids, they start to have more of awareness of, not because they're very much into themselves up into that, but they start to look to others for validation, and there's maybe an element of peer pressure, or at least wanting to kind of fit in and not be against the grain. And so I will tell you this, it is a little bit tricky, but what I found navigating that with my girls, and I even had a little girl who her mom was saying that she gets really upset because they're very much into healthy eating and whole foods, and she really wants like the Oreo and this like that, but she's really excited about now she's starting the football team, so she's really excited about her activity. And so how I broke it down to it is, again, certain foods are really going to help you to be a great football player, right? And so you want to make sure that you get those foods in. Not saying okay, don't eat these foods because this and this, but really starting to focus to her on the positives, because if you distract her mind from and let her know that these certain foods are going to make you be the better, then they feel a little bit more confident in their choices, and they're able to kind of withstand that peer pressure. Even though it's fine to have those snacks every now and then, I tell her, well, you don't want to have them all the time, because guess what, you're finding you're not going to be as fast, and you're not going to be this and that sort of thing. And you don't have to say a lot, right? Because they're young, and try to obviously keep your words very to their level, so not a lot of big words. And then they start to like clue in, and let them finish your sentence a little bit, like, hey, what foods are going to make you faster? And they're like, yeah, I think I know, like fruits, vegetables, there's such a thing. What foods might make you feel sluggish and tired because they don't have a lot and they're like, okay. So their wheels start turning, and I find that that's been really helpful. My daughter now understands what foods make her feel great and what foods don't. She will speak up and say, like to her brownie instructor, hey, you need to have these foods at our next brownie meeting because these are the foods that I eat, and that's the foods that make me feel good. And I had to be like, but at the same time, it was like, I applaud you, because we have moved from the point where it's just like, Mama, why can't I eat that and eat that? And so her now having that awareness, just we're doing pretty good. So you're just gonna have to talk to them.
Communicate.
Yeah.
To add to what the doctor, so sorry, my thoughts went before my words just now. um, to add to what Dr. Pete was saying as well is, also encouraging body positivity. A lot of those things go a long way when, you have like in the household, your parents are encouraging you, or making sure that you are comfortable within your own skin, and also encouraging having a positive relationship with food, recognizing that there, aren't bad foods versus good foods and XYZ, but also, incorporating it into, about a healthy and balanced diet, like Dr. Pete Tolbert said. So these foods, yes, they're enjoyable, they taste good, all those types of things, but you also want to make sure, if you have goals in mind, as if think I'm just piggybacking off of the football young lady, those things may not translate into good performance on the field. So hey, maybe you would have them only on the weekend and those types of things. So the education component is really, really important, because when your children understand why certain things are necessary and why certain things are the way they are, they're able to be a little bit more receptive to it as well, as opposed to just kind of separating them from the the process of why are we doing certain things. So the encouragement across the board, not only about food, but about body changes. This is what, during puberty, this is what your body is going to do. These are natural changes. I know that sometimes, when uh, breasts start to develop in puberty, you get some kind of a complex about it, like, oh, like the whole kind of teasing that comes with it. So just encouraging, like, this is natural, this is what your body is going to go through, so that they're able to be confident in their change in bodies.
Mhm. And mealtime is a great time, as everyone is kind of brought out to educate about the food and where the food comes from, especially new foods. So mealtime is a great time to just have fun educating, have good, happy meal times. I wanted to mention, mealtime, we usually suggest mealtime is not the best time to discuss controversial topics or stressful topics, because emotions do affect digestion. So that's a time to just be, if possible, be happy and have a pleasant conversation, and even a good time to educate, so that like it was mentioned, children know why they're eating what they are eating, and they're not affected by everything that their peers are doing, because they know why they need these healthy foods.
Oh, those are some really good tips. I do have one final question. What tips do you have for selecting food for takeout or when you're dining out together?
Well, I can mention one thing I
Sure.
look for. I don't use and and even for the children that are with me, I don't usually seek out fast food, but when eating out, whether it's at a fast food restaurant or a regular restaurant, which is enjoyable, is first of all, I'm looking for what choices on the menu have vegetables, what choices on the menu include fresh fruits, what choices on the menu include a healthy source of whole grains. Um, what choices on the menu include beans and peas. So that's looking for, eat more of foods that grow. So that's the first thing I personally would recommend looking for on the menu. And then trying to avoid too many foods that are deep fat fried. So that's just two things that I keep in mind.
I would add and just say, to try to mimic the My Plate. So in the event that you're choosing foods, I know they have a lot of like children's menus and those types of things. Just trying to make sure multiple food groups are present, trying to make sure that the options that they're choosing, are, even if it's fried, it's limited. If you're having a chicken tenders and fries once in a while, then that's totally fine, because it's a part of a balanced diet, right? It's just something that they do enjoy eating. But at the same time, we are recognizing that we're not going to introduce this multiple times a week, it's not going to be a part of the majority of the things that you consume. And then if you are eating out, just like I said, trying to choose and build using the my plate structure, if we're going that route, to make sure that it's as balanced as it possibly can be.
I think that you can also call ahead to any of the restaurants. Most of them are accommodating. Let them know what some of your special needs are or your requirements. You don't have to always have a starter. I know sometimes you like to follow through with what's maybe some of your other guests are actually doing, but it's not always necessary. It's easy to switch out whatever the fries with a salad, or make different requests that would actually suit you. So I think those are some of the things that can be done. Looking for those things that a lot of high fat sauces and cheeses and things like that. So you can find different ways to make it healthy. Like most of you said, it's pretty much the same, I think. Yeah.
There is some restaurants, I would say, we're talking to Bermuda. So in my experience eating out with my family, I found that there are some restaurants who are really conscious about the ingredients and really thoughtful about the family um, or child-friendly menus, and I really do think that they deserve credit, and I'm happy to mention them. But you have places like La Trattoria, they add extra squash, pumpkin, and vegetables to the tomato-based sauce, and they tell you that. And so that's great. So if they're getting a pasta, they're happy. They also encourage other sides, or like small sides of vegetables and things like that. And I think that that's really, really cool that they do that. You also have other places like Village Pantry. You also have some really more economical places such as Rotisserie Grill. That is all whole food. That's where we just went our last family. I also try to encourage my kids to just drink water that then because I'm pretty sure we're gonna maybe have something. They're gonna have more salt or sugars than they really used to. So I just like, we don't have to have those extra calories with the juice, and so, or something like that. So that's it. But I hate if I missed out places, but those are the places that I know off my hand. I've really got some nice kind of sit down options, and you can feel really comfortable that it's kind of thoughtful and it's kid friendly, and it's just it's whole foods.
Anyone else?
And I noticed even at one of the local fast food places in town, it's very economical, and they have salads. So even at fast food, you can find a salad, you can find corn on the cob, you can find mashed potatoes. Some even offer a plant-based burger. So
Yeah, so that's good.
So I want to extend a huge thank you. Very grateful to Dr. Pete Tolbert, Miss Simone Hollis, Miss Natalie Bean, Miss Allison Otterbridge for coming on today and spending your time with us, talking to us about nutrition and meal planning. I have learned a lot of tips about supporting a healthy lifestyle, encouraging healthy relationships with food. I really got it really hit home when Dr. Peace talked about going back to the fridge over and over again. I was like, "Ooh, that was me on Saturday." Oh, so clearly I wasn't eating the right food. So yeah, thank you so much. I think this is going to be really helpful to the community in terms of helping with meal preparation, even in terms of making sure that children are engaged in the process, in the shopping process, making the lists, modeling for our children in our own eating habits. Thought that was a really good tip. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.